Welcome to It's a Grand Life, where our mission is to be a voice for grand families and kinship caregivers everywhere. Did you know that in the United States alone, there are 2.3 million grandparents raising their grandchildren? 2.3 million. It's a Grand Life is committed to making a difference for those kids. That's why we have the podcast, a Facebook group, and the Grand Fund. The Grand Fund, which is a 501c3 which was launched in June of 2024, provides financial assistance to grand families, including shelter, food, clothing, and household needs. Grand families are in every neighborhood, in every city, every tribe and territory nationwide. If this is you or someone you love, we're here for you. And we welcome you to join us on this mission. Our goal is to offer hope and resources to help you. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us wherever you get your podcasts and leave a review. You can also join our Facebook group. Just search for it under It's a Grand Life. And your reviews, comments, and sharing of our podcasts help us reach others that need assistance. Welcome to another episode of It's a Grand Life. Hello, my name is Craig Nash. We'd like to welcome you to another It's a Grand Life. And our dear friend Kimber Bishop-Yanke is joining us today to talk about a very important yet sometimes touchy subject. And that is, should not be, but it is. And that is providing housing services for folks in need, specifically in our neighborhood, grandparents raising grandkids. And Kimber got into this, I guess you would say, by accident, Kimber. All right, you primarily were doing coaching for adolescents, how to help them with self-image and deal with bullying. And we talked about that on our last podcast, which was absolutely terrific. I think we're going to do other things to help grand families all over the country with that. But how did you get involved with Kids Empowered on the Move and your passion to help fight homelessness?
Yeah, so for my church, I organize, and thank you for having me again. For my church, I organize volunteers for the last 10 years for 2 weeks of a warming center that happens with churches in Royal Oak. And somebody knew I did that, and they called me up about 5 years ago about one of their former students who was sleeping in her car during the polar vortex, 22 years old. And they said, "Can you help her?" And I was like, very naive, and I thought, sure. And so I called all the numbers that homeless people were told to call, and I got all the kind of responses that homeless people get. It was like a big hamster wheel. Could not figure out how to get into the door to get the services. And so I got very upset. And when I get upset, my way of dealing with it is taking action. So I called some of our elected leaders, and then they said, we'll have a meeting. You bring us some nonprofits, and we'll bring you elected leaders. And then we had a meeting. And at that meeting, Representative Carter stood up and said, I'd like to start a caucus on poverty and homelessness in the Senate and House, which she did. And then she said, I want to start a local task force. And she asked me to help. And I agreed because I don't complain if I'm not going to help. And then I saw on Facebook that I was the chair of this new task force. So that's how I got into it by accident. And
well, you're not into it. You were the chairperson. I love that. You know, that is, I know they do that in a lot of churches. I didn't know they did that in the secular arena, but that makes, you're going to raise your hand, you're going to run it. That's perfect. So, but this has really become a passion of yours. And you are, in fact, between tapings today, you are working on different situations to try and help some folks get their housing. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, you have 85 children right now in hotels. And see, what is so amazing to me at Kimber Bishop-Yanke is that I remember when Oakland County, Michigan was the wealthiest county in the country, and at least in the top 3. And this is a long time ago, but right now, and homelessness in Oakland County they were never in the same sentence, 20, 30 years ago. Now we're not even in the top 150. And that is a very serious statement, because homelessness, as you know, probably more than anybody in our county or in our state, is a very serious situation. We look at it from the grandparents raising grandkids standpoint, and we've been able to partner with some folks together, and that's been a huge blessing to be a part of that. But it's continues to mushroom, doesn't it?
Yes, it's almost like a perfect storm. It's a little bit like the immigration problem. You know, Congress did not address it for 20 years, did not work on it, and nobody's done that with homelessness. And so what we have now is really the pandemic sent it into an explosion, because during the pandemic, nobody could evict anybody. And so once the pandemic was over, the landlords realized they could raise their rents $400, $600 a month, but
Wow.
people's paychecks did not go up.
Right.
So that was one thing. We also had a lot of landlords that were not able to take care of things, so their houses didn't pass inspection. So we have many families that lost their housing. I have one family after 9 years lost their housing because the landlord never addressed the issues of the leaks in the basement. And it just drove the house into being condemned. And that's the story we hear over and over. So it was no fault of that family. They were paying their rent on time. They lived there 9 years. But now what's happened is they got put into this homelessness situation. Now their credit is poor. Now they have an eviction on their record because, again, here families are said the house is condemned, or I'm raising the rent $600, and they have 30 days to find a new place. Well, when you're in poverty, you don't have a car, you don't have the internet, you don't have a laptop to print out things.
Right.
You don't have the application fees. Landlords want 3 times the rent. So for instance, like some grandparents that we were helping, they got $5,000 in disability and Social Security, but they didn't make 3 times the rent. So they could not rent unless we were able to help them. Also, families don't have the deposits. They don't have a month and a half's rent laying around. So all these families had 30 days, 60 days to come up with thousands of dollars and find a new house. And the infrastructure was not there to help these families. And so now we have hundreds of families living in hotels with no pathway out of that.
Right now you do. Right now you have hundreds of families living in hotels.
Yes.
Yes. Why is that?
Well, there was no pathway out. There was no nonprofit, no resources to help these families. And I call it the hidden homeless, because what happens is that the doorway to get help is very narrow, but it's not transparent. So it took me a long time to figure out that the majority of people who are homeless are not actually getting help because they don't qualify to get through this doorway. So the doorway is, in Oakland County, in most places, you have to be what's called Category 1, which is I'm sleeping on the street, I'm in a car sleeping, I'm in a shelter, or I'm in a hotel paid for by an approved nonprofit. And so Oakland County only has one family shelter, which is 18 spots. So 18 families can get through that doorway. Then there's an adult shelter that has 60 spots. When the warming center in Royal Oak is available for those 10 weeks, that would be another 60 spots.
Okay.
Domestic violence shelter is probably about 60 spots. So those are the only people that can get through this doorway. And so the rest of people think they're getting through the doorway. They don't know they're not. And
Wow.
So they're waiting for the help, and the help is not coming. And I want us to be honest about that. I want us to own that the help is not coming, because how can we solve a problem if we don't even know what the problem is?
Well, and I don't know that we know what the problem is, but you're presenting your case very plainly. We've got just a huge demand for housing, and we do not have the resources to help. And this is a ongoing problem. It's not something that is going to be fixed by summer. And this is it appears to be going on. In fact, the numbers are increasing, right?
Yes, and my co-chair of the task force, Professor Jennifer Lucarelli, they're starting. We did research on one hotel. We did a survey on one hotel that I primarily have families in, to find out, like, what are their needs, what are they struggling with, and she is now having one of her PhD students starting at the beginning of February. They're going to be reaching out to all the hotels to try to find out how many people are actually homeless living in hotels.
And is that in Oakland County, or is that all over Michigan?
We're just doing Oakland County, which is a huge undertaking just in itself.
Yeah, but that is the wealthiest county in the state of Michigan. And we're going to look at the homeless problem in the wealthiest county in the state of Michigan.
Because nobody else will look at it.
Right.
Yeah.
And how effective are the task forces and other groups at really addressing this issue and getting the resources that someone, a total layman stepping in like yourself, has jumped into this? I mean, you're not a trained politician or spent a million years on various subcommittees in Lansing or anything like that. You are a mom and a wife who has a small business but saw this huge need, and you jumped in with both feet, and it's got to be overwhelming when you look at that.
It is, because one, the information is not transparent, so it was not easy to try to figure out, and we're still working on that. I would say that our task force, is volunteer, and I am so grateful for all the people that attend the task force, because there is a huge group that wants change. They want change. They're tired of talking about it. Everybody knows there's a problem, but it is hard work to make change. It is messy. These processes are so complicated. And I feel like, I've been criticized a lot for being critical, but I'm a truth teller, and I'm sorry. You know what? If we have to tell the truth about the problem. And there are amazing people out there doing amazing work. And I love, especially, Lisa Grodsky at ULSA, the connection that connected us, the grandparents,
Right.
raised grandparents. I mean, she is fabulous. I would want her on my team any day.
Yep.
But there are a lot of people that I feel like there's a lot of people sitting behind desks doing paperwork and playing phone tag, and they're not going to where people are, and we need to meet people where they're at. So that's why it took me a long time to really understand, like, the hotel problem. But we now just got a storage room in the hotel where, like, even like simple things like, I don't have a can opener to open all these cans you're giving me. Like, oh, wow, yeah, that would help. So even things like, last night, I mentioned to you, I was out at 10 o'clock at night because our focus is kids and families. But because of the weather and because of the need, I have taken on some individuals. And our focus is not the person you see on the street. But I was at a restaurant, and a person off the street came into that restaurant. And of course, I was at the table talking to people about homelessness. And so everybody was looking at me like, okay, Kimber, what are you going to do? And I have tried to offer help to people on the street before, and everybody always turns it down. So I went up to him, and one, I loved the way the staff at this restaurant, they got him a coffee like in seconds. And I was like, wow, look at how the staff is treating this person. I love it. So I went up to him, I introduced myself, and I said, can I get you shelter tonight? And he said, no, I'm okay. And I said, will you at least take my number, and then you can call me if you need something. And then I bought a $300 gift card because the manager told me he comes there almost every day. And they, sometimes there's DoorDash left over and they'll give him those things. And I said, he can have a meal anytime here. And when the gift card's out, I'll come back and refill it. I thought, here's one way I can help this person at least have a meal a day. And so the next day he texted me and thanked me for the meal. And I said, is there anything I can get you? Clothing, shelter. And he said, no, I'm fine. He goes, I really just would appreciate your friendship. He said, it's very lonely being on the streets. And of course that was like, oh, my heart. I was like, okay, you won. Like, I'm gonna try my best to be there for you. Long story short is a week later, after texting back and forth, a week later, I said, the temps are going to be like below zero. I said, or below freezing. I said, can I please just give you shelter? And he said, you're right. I'll take it. And so that was 3 weeks ago. And, he deals with schizophrenia. And so last night when I called to check on him, he had fallen on the ice and he shattered his hand.
Oh.
And a couple of days ago. So I was very worried about him. And so I was out last night at 10 o'clock playing soccer, and I called him and he said, I'm like, tomorrow is supposed to be an ice storm. You can't go outside. And so I ran and got him groceries to check on him. And, I was like exhausted, but this person is trusting me, and he's been hurt by so many people. And so I just feel like I am willing to go the extra mile for somebody like that.
That's an amazing story. And I think it's okay to mention the restaurant that was so cool to him. And
it was Como's in Ferndale.
Now my brother-in-law lives in Ferndale, and he used to go to Como's all the time. I think he still does, but he said that's not uncommon for them to get a meal for someone who comes in off the street. And they have great pizza, and it's wonderful in the summer to sit outside there. But I hope our listeners will go to Como's and just get a wonderful meal, or maybe get a takeout, and because that's all about serving each other. We're all connected, and we need to look out for one another, especially as Americans. The nice one thing I like, Kimber, about grandparents supporting grandparents raising grandkids is that it's not political. There's no division. There's no racial issues. There's no gender issues. If you whatever you are, if you're raising a grandkid, or you've got a daughter or a son in trouble, I get it, and you get my situation. And that's the beauty of this, that it's in a country so divided, this could be a uniting force. So in the few minutes we have left, how can we support kids on the move, kids empowered on the move? How can we do that?
Yes, well, financial donations are desperately needed. We have 35 hotel rooms, and we also pay for deposits as well. So if somebody's going to get housing, we are going to kill ourselves to get those funds for them, because that is the goal for all of these families. Your friend Lisa's calling me right now from Grandparents Raising Grandparents. So we have volunteers. We need volunteers for everything.
Okay.
We deliver food, clothing, furniture. We need people to call around to try to find housing. We need people to call and help people move forward. If somebody had accounting services, legal services, everything is needed that you can imagine. so people can volunteer as much as they want. That's what I love about what we've created. It happened organically through the pandemic, and people can give whatever they want. If they want to do once a month or once a week or every single day, like, we welcome anything, because we're just trying to meet the need. We're very flexible about, how things happen.
Well, for our listeners, I hope you know Kimber is a friend of ours here at It's a Grand Life. We are partners. We have worked on a couple situations for grandparents that needed housing, and in fact, if you've seen any of the news regarding It's a Grand Life, you've seen some of those folks, and they're just wonderful Americans that are having a tough time. So I want to encourage you to support her, to volunteer with her organization, and it'll be time well spent, and it will change your life, because you can make a difference right where you live, and it's absolutely amazing. And let's just remember that we are all Americans, and that we have more in common than we do as differences. And we need to love our neighbors. Someone said that, we need to love our neighbors, and I think that means your neighbors. And Kimber Bishop-Yanke, thank you so much for being our guest here on It's a Grand Life. We're going to have the information for Kids Empowered on the Move at the bottom of our screen. When you're watching this, write that number down, check out that website, and become a partner with Kids Empowered on the Move. You'll be glad you did, and you'll make a difference that'll last forever. And thanks so much again. We're going to hear from you. I know we've got some things in the works, and we talk all the time. So I'm looking forward to supporting you any way we can. So thanks so much for being our guest today.
Thank you. And I think it's wonderful how you are supporting this group of this population that, needs help and support, and they need positivity. So thank you.
Absolutely. And well, thank you for what you're doing, and bless your husband when you see him, and the kids. I know they're getting probably a quarter of mom right now, because she's pulled in 20 different directions. But we grandparents understand that, because we're pulled in several different ways as well. But we'll chat with you very soon. Thank you so much for being our guest, and just want to encourage our audience, reach out and let's all make a difference. So we'll see you next time on It's a Grand Life. Thanks so much. Thank you for joining us today for It's a Grand Life. It's a Grand Life provides vital content, regulatory updates, and subject matter experts that are committed to supporting the 2.4 million kids and their caregivers from every neighborhood, every city, every tribe and territory nationwide. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel or wherever you get your podcasts, and leave a review. Every new subscriber and review helps us reach others that need assistance. As caregivers, we are united in purpose. We are driven by hope while providing strength for today and hope for tomorrow. We are truly making a difference while living the grand life. If you have a suggestion for a future episode, please reach out to us. But we'll see you next time for another It's a Grand Life. Thank you for joining us.